Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beneath Vancouver Radio, episode number 69. I'm very happy to be here with my good friend Josh. Josh, how are you doing today?
Very well. Looking forward to the podcast episode.
Yeah, we were just talking about this before we started. It's been 3 years since we've known each other.
That's crazy.
And this is the first time we've actually recording the podcast.
Yes.
So maybe we'll get into that a little bit more. But
I'm like, finally, I made the short list. I've been waiting on this for 3 years.
Exactly. So. 3 years. That is crazy. But again, obviously, we're doing this recording in person. I'm very happy to kickstart this podcast again. If you're watching this, I recently launched Tim's episode last week, probably episode number 68. So if you haven't, check it out already. But I'm just really happy to be here. Happy to do these in person. I said it in the previous episode. I'll say it again. Zoom episodes were just not for me anymore. I was getting a little bit fatigued just talking with people at the screen. And it's a little bit of a different environment and a different energy, I think, when you're actually physically in the same room.
So I'm your first...
second.
Oh, second.
Yeah,
okay.
second. Okay. Sorry.
Got it. No worries.
Hey, you're on the podcast, all right? Let's not get ahead of ourselves. No, I'm joking. But I'll start it off how I usually start with every episode with the question that I let my guests know is, who are you today, Josh? So you can take that however you will.
Wow, very open-ended.
Yeah.
My name is Josh Loh. Who I am today, I am a new dad.
Yay!
So that has been a whirlwind. So I have a baby daughter, Jocelyn. She's almost 2 in July.
2? Oh my.
So that's been a new role in my life. Mm-hmm. It's been awesome. It's been challenging, been crazy, like balancing work.
Yeah.
I'm also a product designer, full time, and then big Webflow enthusiast.
Yes.
So
we'll talk about that maybe too.
Definitely. All about that no code movement. So I kind of do that on the side for freelance projects. And then previously, during the pandemic, I really got into live stream and podcasting and hosting, as most people in the world has as well. So that's kind of like my added thing to the title. In a nutshell, that's kind of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like it. Well, let's kind of dive into a little bit. I want to give them the origin story just because I feel like there is some value to that when it comes to if you are looking to either network or meet different people. I think now, especially with more events starting to come live and in person, if you're like a photographer or just looking to someone to connect with. I actually met Josh through officially. Were you the one who replied on the Juice Labs Instagram? Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I reached out to Josh.
Out of nowhere. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah. I think was it through my personal? I don't actually remember. But
no, it was Beneath Vancouver.
It was Beneath Vancouver's Instagram. Yeah. I reached out to Josh, Juice Labs, because they were hosting an event. It was the one that was held at Mount Pleasant, right? At the co-working space.
Yeah. Pavilion.
Yeah. Pavilion. Yeah. Really nice space.
Yeah.
Not sponsored, but it's pretty nice. You should check it out. And I reached out to you because I was looking to get into a little bit more event photography again with Beneath Vancouver at the time. I was just leveraging as much kind of network that I had, and I actually met or saw your story through Daniel Goglin because he was a speaker at that event.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I reached out to Josh and I was like, hey, I've got no idea what I'm doing. I didn't tell him that. Got no idea what I'm doing, but I'm interested in covering your event, right? And we met up, we had some lunch, and here we are 3 years later, and you're probably wondering like why does that matter? But I think for me it's an emphasis of you really truly don't know who you're going to meet and the connections you'll potentially leverage
for sure
or maintain obviously throughout these 3 years that we've known each other. Obviously we don't necessarily talk every day, but we do catch up every now and then and see how everyone's doing. And when you started your podcast a little bit, I helped you out in that regards as well. So it's I think a lot of people are worried about the rejection, about the no's, and again, this can go for just even networking if you're looking to get a job or something like that. But as the great Michael Scott said, you got to shoot your shot. Or I don't know is that from The Office? I might be butchering that completely, but
shoot your shot, yeah,
something along those lines, right? But yeah, I'm curious to maybe get your take on that as to kind of how you felt about maybe that whole thing and just the approach in general, or maybe not the approach, but just how would that leverage
creating the event
and as well kind of like taking the jump, if you will, of bringing someone on board that, again, you had no idea who I was, right? Besides meeting me in person once. So,
well, your proposal was super easy. I mean, you were offering like photography and videography coverage for free. I'm like, okay,
yeah, let's do it.
When can you start? Let's go. That's great. But yeah, I think just to give more context, my background, I didn't mention before, is in civil engineering. So yeah, I worked as a civil engineer for 7 years, 4 years in the mining industry and 3 years in the high-rise residential building industry. And long story short, just decided to make a switch. I was kind of burnt out. And then, I won't go into the big details of it, but I just discovered UX.
Right.
And on the side, I was actually doing videography. That was kind of like my creative outlet. I was doing some wedding gigs, things like that.
Right.
So,
I think you had mentioned that.
Yeah. And so and then I heard about digital marketing. I was like, okay, I was like looking into that. And then when I was doing my research, I found a boot camp, Red Academy. And then I looked into what they're offering for courses, and then I discovered UX design. And I thought, okay, this is actually a perfect balance between like the creative expression and the like logical analytical thinking. So I, instead of signing up for digital marketing, I went to UX design, did a 3-month boot camp, and that was basically my transition from engineering to tech. I've already had a lot of experience in project management, all that stuff. So right after I finished, I just went right into freelance, which usually requires, some experience or confidence. Not a lot of like brand new grads or people without any experience like jump into freelance. But anyways, but I was totally brand new to the industry, didn't know anyone, and I loved creating events. Even like my wedding, I remember like mapping out the layout of like the flow of people. Okay, they're gonna come in the registration table, and then from
the customer
there,
journey.
Yeah, totally. It really was, and I love that. It was just like I loved, whether it was in engineering, creating videos. For me, I realized that I love creating environments, and I think like now I know more about like user experience. It's like the overall experience of it. So so I was like mapping out the flow, and like, okay, now they're gonna go to the lobby area, and like, or I need like dining or like lounge chairs and all that. Where was I going with that?
The transition to events.
Yeah, and so just creating the environment and giving people a good time.
Right.
So I decided to invite local industry experts in the tech space, and then just host these events. And then I hosted it at Red Academy. And then Juice Labs was born. That was basically like this design community where we would just intersect. Actually, I originally wanted to intersect design and marketing and development.
Right.
And then now realize why, events like that don't really exist, because it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot to try to like cross collaborate those things. So we eventually focused on like design related topics, but we did like workshops. And then so one of those events was the one at Pavilion. And so I think talking about like how I got that started, I think really I was also doing a bit of a like leadership development course at that time, and I was just getting challenged and expanded, and it was all about embracing like like you said, just go for it. Like, I mean, every designer I hear, they always talk about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And that's true. And like, fake it till you make it. But I think, I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this for imposter syndrome, but I think it's almost like you're like growing into a new shell or a new capacity, right? And so that beginning, the first few steps, it'll feel unnatural, but you just keep at it. And then that sense of familiarity and like over time and practice, that imposter syndrome will go away. Right. And I feel like once you have imposter syndrome, that's just a symptom of saying, hey, it's the beginning of growth. Yeah. And I don't know, I beg to differ when people say it never goes away. I think it does. Like, there are stages and steps of your development, your career. And like, not to say, not like I still continuously put myself in new situations, but I would say that, at times I don't have it, just because I think it's all about owning who you are and owning the role you're in. So that's kind of some advice I'll kind of put out there, is like, sure, like, be self-assured, like be your own best cheerleader, or like and like surround yourself with good people that'll like bring you up to that skill level where you want to aim at. So anyways, so I just started like reaching out to people. I ended up talking to the owner of Pavilion Co-working Space, which is like a beautiful space.
Yeah, it's really nice.
And and it was just awesome how so many doors opened up. And then fast forward later in the pandemic.
You did one online one, right? Am I
yeah,
right?
well, yeah.
It's
So
like
that's right.
Something with a bus.
Walking School Bus.
Yes.
Or SIMBI.
Yeah.
SIMBI Foundation now it's called. So that was kind of our transition to like the digital space. And then I was tapping with like live streaming. But it's amazing, like just having that platform, it's a privilege. It's definitely a privilege to like bring people in. And I'm like, I couldn't believe like, I'm having these top, people in the industry. One of the product managers from Later came in, right, on that event, and they just wanted to talk for free. I'm like, oh, I don't have to pay you. I don't have any money, but I just think it's awesome, like the space we're in too. Like everyone's so generous. They just want to contribute, and I think they also want to be heard too. They want to share, like they've learned a lot. So it's a really fun space to just go. So if like for those who are listening and want to try things out, like just go for it. Like, I mean, yeah, okay, are you going to make mistakes? Sure. But like, that's the whole point. Like, just get started. Like, it's like no child learns to perfectly walk without falling. Like, you just have to embrace the stumbles, but it's like the way you frame failure, right? It's not failure. It's just, you just learn, get up and just move on.
And do it again. And obviously adapt to those, learnings and those mistakes, right? If you keep doing the same thing and expect maybe a similar result, obviously there's some change in that regards. But you touched upon a really good point, because have you heard of the Vancouver freeze? No, you haven't heard it before?
Vancouver freeze?
Yeah, I'm sure people who might be tuning in, I'm not sure if it's...
I've been living in a cave because I'm a new dad, so I don't know if it's a new term.
It's like, I believe it's called the Vancouver freeze. It might be framed differently, but essentially what the premise is that people in Vancouver are cold.
Oh.
Yeah. Have you heard of that before?
Oh, not that term, but yeah, Vancouver, it's a hard city, man.
Right? Yeah, so...
I didn't grow up here.
But I think for a lot of people, they label Vancouver as that. Like if you like go out to like a bar or something, or go out in general, like people are within their bubble,
right? And
they don't venture out of their bubble. Yeah. Like if you're going to a bar by yourself, like you trying to immerse yourself or implement yourself in another person's conversation is difficult. And so that's where that premise comes from. But I've kind of seen the opposite, because you mentioned about how people are willing to give back and like connect with different people, and maybe might not be an apples to apples comparison, but if we're considered a city that's like cold and people don't want to talk with others, I've just seen kind of the opposite of that, where people are willing to help, willing people to, as you said, like people in established positions or have been at companies for a while now, provide mentorship for free or just want to contribute. And maybe that's just the tech space in general.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is it like Vancouver in general or the tech space?
Vancouver in general. The freeze term is like for Vancouver in general. It's like a blanket statement. Right. Obviously, that's not applicable to everyone. But
the generosity you're talking about, that's
is more from what I've seen, at least. Again, there might be different areas, but the creative, the tech space, because those are the spaces that I would say I'm more the creative now, but trying to get into the tech space where I'm more involved in. It's just been the opposite. I mean, when people were wanting to get interviewed by me, when I first was starting Beneath Vancouver, and I wasn't paying them. Obviously, I had no money. I was a student and just looking to start this up from the ground up. Yeah. And I connected with some people that were, at that time, I would say like quote unquote relatively like big, right? And again, that use that term loosely, but it was definitely someone that had some sort of influence in the space, some sort of following, was established. It wasn't maybe just someone that just started, let's say music about a week ago, right? And it was just, even then, outside of that, individuals like yourself, other people as well that I connected with that were just allowing me to be a part of their journey as well, to help me bolster mine. So I think that was something that even to this day, I'm really grateful for. Yeah. Where, yes, technically the Beneath Vancouver in general would not have existed if it wasn't for the generosity of all these people that I spoke with or connected with. So it's just a bit of a reflection. I was curious if you had maybe similar sentiment.
It's a very interesting thing. It's so new to me. Like I never reached out, especially when I was in engineering. Like none of this stuff existed. But like it's beautiful. I think even recently, like, yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I recently finally got into Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's a big tech thing. Like a lot of like tech people in Vancouver like use Twitter like religiously.
Yeah, well, I mean, like it's been around for a long time, but I just found it as just way too chaotic and too many trolls there. So I'm like, hey, I don't need to kind of fill my mind. Yeah. But I got in because I heard the Webflow community is really active there. So I literally just got in, like 2 weeks ago, and then I just saw a post of one guy. Maybe I might announce this later on, but I might get into this collaboration with a amazing, well-known, like niche company. And I just like, he just said, "Oh, I'm growing my team. Reach out," and I DM'd him
through Twitter.
And then I had a video talk with him and his partner, and they're in Australia.
Okay.
And now I might be doing some things with him, and it's just amazing. Like, it's just unheard of. So there's no rule book for this. So
there isn't, especially now with this era that we live in. Digital.
Yeah.
So that's, I think for a lot of people as well, it's understanding where to even find those opportunities also. Like how you said yourself, you weren't on Twitter until you found out that, the Webflow community was big on Twitter. And for a lot of people, it might be, well, I don't have, let's say like LinkedIn or whatever the case might be, because I don't use it, but there might be some opportunities there that you're not aware of. I would say even like something like Discord, right? A lot of people are, I think it went from being more gamer centric to now
it's a huge
little bit more
group,
community group. People can connect. Channels. I'm in a lot of channels that are, I would say I'm in more non-gaming related channels on Discord servers than I am actual gaming servers.
Okay. And that changed like just during the pandemic,
right? That did. Yeah. I mean, I think it was really the only platform that was ready for big collaboration, and it had everything you needed. It had voice, it has text, it has video, it has the different channels like Slack. And a lot of people were like, oh, let's use Slack, but Slack maybe wasn't ready for that sort of like, it was more of a work first kind of thing, a work management platform. And it just grabbed that market share where people were like, I need to build a community online. How do I do that? Facebook? No one's on Facebook.
Yeah.
Are you on Facebook? I'm not on. No. I use it just purely for Messenger.
You know what? I find that really interesting because I didn't use it until like last year. And like
Facebook,
Messenger.
Oh, Messenger.
Just Messenger. And I'm like, well, all these Gen Zs like still using Messenger. I thought it was for their parents. I'm surprised.
I use it. I mean, it's either Messenger, iMessage if everyone has an iPhone, or WhatsApp.
Right. I would assume WhatsApp is the base.
I'm not a big WhatsApp guy.
Oh, really?
I think besides like I message you on WhatsApp, and besides like my mom and one group chat that I have with like my high school buddies, that's really all the times I use WhatsApp. Like family and that group chat.
So with friends
and certain friends.
Messenger. Okay. What about IG?
No, I don't create conversations on IG unless it's like we're sending memes to each other.
Yeah.
Or I'm messaging someone like for the very first time
for networking.
Then I'll do Instagram.
This is the whole thing too. The whole communication, like what's the rule book for like Twitter? Like use that for news, get all that stuff, and like WhatsApp is it for friends, and then Messenger or all that stuff. Like it's just so much.
But even then, like I don't know about you, and maybe the listeners can relate to that. I really don't talk to more than maybe 5 people. I would say on a regular basis. Okay. More than 5 people. Right. My mom, like the group chat that I have for my WeWork buddies.
Okay.
And then the occasional like maybe one or maybe like 3 other people that is just sort of like depending on the time. Like we'll talk on a regular basis, but it might not be as frequent.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of time consuming. It takes a lot of energy.
Yes.
To have like all these different conversations, all these different platforms.
Yeah.
Like if I'm, busy or if I'm doing something, the last thing I want to do is tracking like 6 different conversations on maybe 3 different platforms. And sometimes people aren't really the biggest fan of that because they're like, oh, you're not replying to us. I'm like, it's just
okay. I want to park here because this is I think this is a really important thing to talk about. Is like prioritizing your goals, and I think one of the biggest challenges like in this generation is like mass distraction.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're really like strict, or just you have those boundaries put in place, because if you don't, like, you will not get anything done.
You just get lost in the sauce.
Yeah. And it's really about like managing your focus and managing your energy. So yeah, like having those times to shut the phone off, or even just like say, nope, I'm not gonna.
I use Focus a lot more now.
Yeah.
And then
on
my
iPhone?
phone.
Yeah.
I used to not. I used to be like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. But then I've noticed that unfortunately, but also like thankfully, a lot of the work that I can do or reply to certain things are on my phone. But now because for me it was the trigger, was the notification, even though it was on silent. Even though it was on silent and vibration is off. Yeah. It was just the flickering effect.
Right.
And I'm like,
I
need to reply to this right now, or I feel bad, and that's a terrible mindset to have. So I was just like, okay, how do I actually get into what I would call like my deep work state? I read a book called Cal Newport. I'm sure you've read it.
One of my favorite books.
Great book. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. If you're easily distracted like myself, or even in general, you might not even want to be distracted, but just so much hyper connectivity now. I use Focus now. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's perfect. Especially for creatives. Yes, you need to like time block deep work, because you need at least like an hour just to get into it. Yeah. If you're getting distracted all the time, you're like getting pulled back to the shallow depths. And like when you're doing deep work, it's like creatives, you really need to like, especially for a product design, you need to really like take all the inputs, which is like user needs, their problems, the restrictions technically, like for developers, all that stuff, and then just like let your brain just simmer, like saturate it, and then from there, like the solutions arise. But if you get like pinged and Slack message here and there all the time, like it's really hard to find a good solution. So I would say if you're not doing creative work, then like that's fine, like just like data entry or whatever, and but I
put deep work on my Slack channel now, like for work.
Oh yeah.
Whenever I really need to, like, don't distract me, because you get the emails and stuff. Like the emails will continuously come in, or the Slack messages will come in, but if they don't hear a response, like, just know it's because I'm in the zone kind of thing. So I would recommend that, honestly, for even students. I mean, I remember when I was studying, just that notification would be a distraction. And you're just connected to so many different platforms, so many different apps, WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Twitter, and that's not even probably half of it. So
do you think this is a major cause towards mental health issues?
The distraction aspect?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, I think so for sure. I think, I mean, I don't know if you've seen the documentary, what's it called?
Oh, the social
dilemma. The social dilemma.
Right.
I mean, the statistics are there, right? Like, especially when it comes to, I would say I think we see a lot of right now, it's just coming to terms and becoming more mainstream, the comparison aspect of, let's say you see someone who is really fit, right? And you're like, why don't I look like that? And then you go to the extremes to try to look like that person, right? It's potentially unrealistic, or that person took years to get to the physique or the body, whatever, right? It might be. But I think the other side of that also is the distraction aspect, where it's maybe not as talked about, of, not having attention spans anymore, or at least good attention spans. And that's something that is very dangerous, or not dangerous, but it can be a bit worrisome, I should say. Yeah. I'll rephrase it like that, because of certain things that might need your attention for long periods of time, such as certain jobs, certain things, and stuff like that. So, I think, the grand scheme of things, like social media and just the hyper connectivity of everything is very...
Because it's constant.
It's constant.
It doesn't end.
Unless you turn your phone off.
It's like crypto.
Yeah.
It's 24/7.
Luna. But it's... I think now more than ever, you as the individual have to take the initiative to get out of that. Yes. I think before it was like...
But we're not trained. There's no etiquette
and
around it.
our brain is... I read this somewhere where you're just constantly stimulated. Your brain is constantly in a state of stimulation. Okay. And that's not how we should be.
Yeah. So that's the thing. I think. I mean, okay, I'm an older guy now. Like, I remember like
and
back.
we're
like,
not medical experts or anything, but that's just what we're seeing. We're seeing online.
Like
Must be true, right?
I clearly remember social media really picked up. It was like 2010, 2011.
Mm-hmm.
That was when like Facebook switched from a desktop and then they opened up the mobile app.
iPhone was just announced at that time too, right? Or was it already out?
2008 or something.
Okay, it was already out.
7, yeah. But yeah, a few years in. But like prior to that, there were actually like even for work, like when you finished work, you had your downtime.
Yep.
Your brain could just rest and process.
Yeah.
But now it's like constantly getting pinged, getting poked at.
Poked, Facebook pokes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I always wonder that. Like, I've almost like.
It's now a skill.
Yeah.
It is now a skill.
But like if you're a people pleaser or like it's actually a really hard thing because like, oh, you have to like respond to the message.
Yeah,
you
that's
have
me.
to do this. I almost had to, and that was me too. And I eventually kind of have to shift myself for my own sake, my own like mental health, just to say, like, nope, I don't care. Like, it's like, I need my time. So I'm just blocking you out and like, so I don't know. Anyways, this is some interesting thing to point out because it's definitely an issue for sure.
It is. Yeah.
And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of swept under the rug a little bit. And I think it's just starting to come into light a little bit more on like the stimulation side of your brain is, it's never off, right? You're, especially for remote workers potentially.
Yeah.
You're
and
working.
Asynchronous work.
Yeah,
now.
asynchronous work.
Yeah.
You're working. Okay, now you're now doing your own thing online, but your phone is still on. You're getting pinged of maybe your side hustle as well, right? A lot of people now, like, they want to start working something on the side just as a way to, it's funny, they maybe do that as a way to de-stress, but then ironically maybe as well, it's still providing to the stress that you might like subconsciously not be thinking about.
Yeah.
I know for me, that's sort of that as well. Like, okay, maybe I'm not doing my day job, but now I'm also still working and feel the need to like be on top of it, right? Or feel the need of connectivity. And yeah, it's a skill that I can honestly say I'm still at the very early stages of developing. When I first read the book Deep Work, it was back in 2019, so pre-COVID. So I felt like I went to the office. I was working internship at the time, office, and then I would go home and then do my thing, but I didn't feel as like connected as much. And I feel like now more than ever, it's funny. People don't ask for people's phone numbers anymore. You ask for Instagram, if it's maybe a more casual setting.
Yeah.
Or LinkedIn if it's more in a professional setting.
So if someone does ask for your number, do you think like, oh, that's a little too personal?
Right.
It's
It
like,
almost
like
feels
give
a
my
little,
SIN number or something.
Almost. I feel like it's almost to that point, right? Where, big picture, the social media definitely is more personal because there's more content and stuff. But it's like, who texts, right? Like, who's sending text messages anymore?
Oh, no one calls each other.
No one calls each other. Like, I remember we actually just went through this. I had a social for Amplier on Wednesday, and we were just making sure if one person was going to show up because we were just waiting for a table, and we're like texting her, and we're like, one of the other people was like, why don't you just call her? And I'm like, oh yeah, I can just call her. It's like, it's weird.
What about audio notes?
I feel a little awkward about it.
Because we send...
I love audio notes.
Yeah,
I
like that.
I send you audio notes because I know that you're okay with it. Some people absolutely hate it. They're like, why are you sending me a minute or 30 seconds audio notes? Do you think I'm going to listen to this? Like,
yeah, it is true.
Maybe so. But I think in our case, it was a little bit more in depth of like, I forgot what we were talking about, but it required a little bit more than just like, yes, no, maybe so, right? Yeah, deep work. So just an audio message is a lot easier for me. Like,
right.
Okay, good to go. And then, you can reply yes, no, maybe so to that.
Yeah.
I think audio messages are really cool. I think, honestly, if everything could be an audio message, it would be nice. Yeah. It gets the point across.
Totally. And the tones baked into it.
I mean, WeChat is just pure audio message, right?
Yeah.
Why can't I don't know.
Yeah.
That needs to come into the other stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like it's neat even as a product designer or whatever. It's like, like there are different people who prefer to communicate differently.
Yeah, of course.
For sure. And a text, it is good because you can scan it and it's more time efficient, but then you lose the tone and the context.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm with you.
Uncapitalized LOL. Oh my gosh, they're mad at me or something like that. That might be more with your significant other or your partner, but yeah, always double check. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Anyways,
I do want to put in before we wrap up or whatever. I want to commend you for like all the stuff you're doing, and even when you reached out to me, like What episode is this? Like 40
It's
something?
69.
Ooh, 16. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.
Congrats. And I think, I mean, just coming back and connecting all those points we talked about, like taking the initiative, not having the initial experience, but just like saying, just winging it. It's like, I'm just going to go for it. Like,
I had no idea what I was doing when I first started.
But, you know, like, I think, and maybe I'll ask a question for you.
For sure.
Like, how do you come up? Because when you talked to me and you approached me, you had this level of confidence, you had this level of competence, and so yeah, like how did you kind of establish that? Like have you always been this way? Did you just kind of throw yourself out and yeah, like tell me about that.
When you say approach, do you mean like the first time or for the podcast?
Both, like just even in general, when you first decided to start a podcast, when you first started to reach out like businesses that you never knew,
right?
And then myself, or like other opportunities,
opportunities as well. Yeah, good question. I think it was a matter of, I mean, I'm a people person, like till the day I die. That's definitely going to be something that I'll always carry. Extroverted, love chatting with people. I love making people happy to some extent as well. I was the class clown back in elementary school. I remember parent-teacher conference. Aaron is a good student, but he distracting the other students by talking to them.
Interviewing them already.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I was prepping. I was years ahead of the curve. Oh my goodness.
I had the vision.
Yeah, I had the vision already. But yeah, no, in all seriousness, like I think for me it was a matter, and I tell this to all the students as well that I've spoken to recently by the conferences that I've gone to or just have been networking, is you need to understand what makes you tick.
Okay.
And who you are as an individual. And this is not an easy thing to do. You might think, oh, well, yeah, okay, I like this, I like that. But no, like I remember when I came back from working at Best Buy, a shift, it's like 11:30 at night. I was just like, I felt not happy in the sense of not so much like where I was in life, but more of like I wanted to create something.
Okay.
And I felt the need to, I say need in the sense of internally of wanting to, almost as you said, I think you had mentioned this before, or Tim had mentioned it in yesterday or last week's episode, of leaving some sort of like legacy behind. And you might think, wow, Aaron, like relax, right? Get off your high horse. But no, I think that legacy doesn't have to go to the masses. That could just be even within Vancouver, right? Or even within my close group of friends or my family or whatever the case might be. So it was a matter really, again, of self-reflecting. And at that time, I just finished reading Gary Vee's Crushing It. And the kind of the biggest quote, or I guess I'm paraphrasing here, but the biggest point that I got from that book was, if you were really interested about something, try creating it into something that you enjoy doing and just see where it goes from there. Obviously, I'm completely butchering the quote, but it's more or less, that's like
make it happen.
Make it happen, for lack of a better word.
Okay.
And for me, it was, okay, I literally came down. I remember I still have the piece of paper. And I wrote pros and cons, T chart, typical style. And I said, what are my pros and cons of who I am as a person? I love to talk to people. I don't like X, Y, Z, yada, yada, yada. And I took a look at it and I said, okay. And I guess almost in a sense, I was also thinking ahead of like the product side of what are we missing in the space right now? Like Vancouver. Instagram at that time was just starting to become like super popular. And it was a really easier way to grow organically your online presence. So I said, all right, well, we have Daily Hive. That's actually where I stemmed some inspiration from. We have some sort of like news media company that gives us up-to-dates about businesses or things that are going on in the community. And then Humans of New York was also popping off at that time.
Oh, okay.
So I was just like, and Humans of New York gives a more really in-depth, personable approach to who this person is and what makes them amazing. And that's what makes up New York City. So I was just like, we don't have that here. Let's bring those two things together. Let's bring the media side, but let's bring it a little bit more personable, and let's create something. And by let's, I mean, I was thinking out loud to myself. I love to, I don't know about you or anyone else. I love to think out loud.
Yeah. External processing.
Yeah. External processing. Of like, let's do this, let's do that, let's do this. So I did that. And, obviously, long story short, a couple of logos later, asking my friend who's a designer, hey, I need a logo because I have no idea where to start. Googled how to start a website. Wix popped up as an advertisement. They got me. I don't use Wix anymore, thankfully. Sorry, Wix. But
What do you use now?
I use Webflow. Yeah,
That's right. That's right.
You're the one who got me into that.
That's the right answer.
Webflow is, yeah,
It's the future.
It's so amazing. The learning curve is there. Don't get me wrong. I have no technical background. I did not learn how to code, nothing along those lines. But once you really just understand the fundamentals of like CSS,
you could do so much.
Yeah.
The animations, it's amazing.
Yeah. So I highly recommend that. And they even have free courses as well at Webflow University, where you can just learn the basics and just understand. And I think even once you know that, you can transfer that knowledge to so many different things because you know how it works. You know how this interacts with this, which will affect this, which affects the CS class.
Yeah,
that's a whole different.
It's a gateway.
Yeah.
Anyway, so sorry. So you learn how to start a website or create the website.
Yeah, so I did that on Wix, and it was just from there. I just said, okay, what does this look like realistically? And at that time, I was like, okay, I actually didn't like writing, but I wanted to improve my writing.
Oh.
Growing up, high school, I was, I would say like a 70 average writer. 75%. If I got an 80, I was like, I did a really good job. Yeah. I was never really my strong suit. And along those lines, I was like, I want to develop that because it's a skill that I think everyone should develop, or at least especially in that space where you're telling a story. Yeah. So I was like, okay, let's write blogs. And I just picked up, created a Gmail, beneathvan@gmail.com, created an Instagram, grabbed the logo, put it on. I remember I was in bed while I was creating this, and I was like, this is where I started. This is the beginning.
How did that feel? Were you excited?
Oh, I was on top of the world. It was like the adrenaline was going. All I could think about was that I'd go to school. I would, hopefully none of my professors are listening. I would not pay attention. I would just be reaching out to people, fixing the website, figuring out what's my game plan going to be. I remember I had finals. I started this on April 9th of 2019. April 8th, sorry, of 2019 or 2018. Season. It was final season, didn't study as hard, just kind of put it all to the side. I was just really trying to see how I could build this into something. Yeah. And I just started reaching out to people, letting them know like who I was. And I think what a lot of people grasp, at least from what they've told me, is, you might not have had any sort of nothing to show, a portfolio, if you will, but just the energy and the passion that you have from this meeting that we've had right now, I can tell you are in this 110%. So I think that's where people really allowed me to give me that shot. And people will feel that energy and they'll see that energy off you. And I just kind of rode that wave and just kept going in that aspect.
Did you ever have hesitations? Like, cause I know when we first met you, the Juice Labs team, we were all so shocked that you're so young, and you carry yourself off really well. You're very articulated. Like for me, if I was in your shoes, like I was like early 20s, I definitely would not be talking to someone like 10 years older. So like, were you always like?
I thought you were 22 at the time.
Oh, thank you. I don't know if that's a good. I'm gonna take that as a good thing.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Maybe my wording was a little poor there, but it was a good thing. Yeah. I mean, obviously hesitation, and we talked about it earlier in this episode, having that imposter syndrome and not being aware of or being aware of that as well. I think for me, it was a matter of almost putting all my eggs in one basket because, when we first met, it was when did we first meet? It was 2019. So I was already going into my fourth year. I was in my fourth year at UBC. It's technically my second year in kinesiology, but with credits and everything, I just had 1 year left essentially. And I knew that I really wanted to see where this would take me. My kinesiology degree, I knew that I didn't want to use right away in the sense of, going to work at a clinic or anything along those lines. I was always that oddball, like, hey, does anyone want to talk about marketing or like what's going on in the digital space? No, we're just talking about how to tape up their ankles. Okay, well, so it was difficult for me to make friends, if I'm being honest, within my faculty and within my school, outside of like social clubs and everything else that I was a part of as well, and find like-minded people that were interested in this in this space. So it was okay, if I'm going to make it in the sense of making these connections, the only way is to network, and that was pretty much it. So the hesitation was there, but I was just
You're a natural, I think.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but
I'll say it for you.
Thank you. As Josh who said it.
Keep your humility.
Yeah. But meeting people is just, I thrive in that environment.
Okay.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. And especially when I'm meeting someone for the first time and wanting to make a good first impression, it's a matter of just obviously putting your best foot forward, but collecting yourself and knowing what value can you provide to them and what value hopefully they provide to you as well. It's a two-way street. And I think in general, like, I've always just had that composure of me, and obviously I think that's also I'm very, very, very grateful for that. I've never been really a shy person in that regards. And that skill, again, pros and cons, right? What skills, what am I good at? What am I not good at? Really just double down on what you're good at. Yeah. And that was a skill that allowed me to catapult an idea into the podcast, into photo and video work, into now the creative agency that I'm a partner in, and to now sitting here right now 3 years later, right? Who would have thought when we were having sushi, right, that we'd be having a conversation 3 years later. So it's always fun. Interesting.
Every time we reconnect, it's like
it's always a good time.
Pick up where we left off.
Yeah.
So.
But I think to summarize that really long-winded answer goes back to the original point of who are you? Well, what makes Josh passionate? What makes Aaron passionate? What makes you passionate? What do you like? And I'm not saying that you never have to work on your weaknesses. Obviously, I'm still working on that right now. But if you're looking to kickstart something, you just gotta go for it. Is there a good book here?
Yes.
A little book recommendation.
Have you heard of StrengthsFinder?
No, I haven't.
Oh, this is another book. I think
Strengths-based leadership.
Yeah. StrengthsFinder is great. It's one of those like what is it, like Myers-Briggs personality testing, but it's really great because I'll give a nice little plug to it.
Yeah.
The original, how it came about was, I think in the 70s or 60s, there was like a bunch of psychologists. They were doing research on depression.
Right.
And so they want to find out what was causing people to be depressed. And then out of that, they realized that people weren't really using their strengths. And so, like say getting stuck in a dead end jobs and like their strengths weren't utilized. And so, out of that, they realized they just kind of came up with like 34 themes, which is different strengths. So for example, mine is like futurist. I love just dreaming about what can be. Right. Positivity. So I always make sure, even in the worst situation, I try to like get the best out of it. Maximizer was at one point one. So I just try to like get the most bang for a buck out of the opportunity. Oh my goodness. Learner is a big one. Like the whole act of like learning, picking up new things, things like that. So it's great because like you said, like when you take stock of your strengths, like you can better position yourself to niche down on a certain thing, especially with the way things are now, and especially in tech. Like I'm learning more and more that it is more beneficial to be more of a specialist than a generalist. I think you need both, but like you need to be a generalist to know what's going on in the landscape, but like just double down on your strengths and then bring team members who like that cover your weaknesses. Like if it's their strength, then you supplement that, and then that's when you have like a winning team. But it's a really good
strengths-based leadership. Tom Rath and Barry Conchi.
Sure. Well, this book is the supplement to it, but it's StrengthsFinder. StrengthsFinder. It's what is it? Gallup, I think it's run by Gallup or Clifton Gallup. Anyways. Nice little side note. But
there's a lot of good books out there. I use Audible myself. Just because I feel like, again,
this one comes with the like survey.
Oh.
So then you assess. So it's not so
much.
Oh,
I see. So you do the survey, and then that helps you tell you and then you can read more about. Gotcha. Hey, well, if they want to sponsor this episode,
reach out to them.
Feel like we talked about your book. No, that's good. And I think it's we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, which looking back would have made for some pretty good content. But it is the game of life, so to speak, is just so ups and downs, left and right, front and back, all sorts of directions, all the axes. It's very interesting and you never know when things can change. You never know what might interest you one month or 1 year, and then pivoting into a different space or whatever the case might be. Obviously, even like looking at my path now, 2018 Beneath Vancouver, that was pretty much until 2020 when COVID hit. We had to pivot. Then Amplier, pretty much from late 2020 to now. Alongside of that, a lot of things have happened. Sorry, and you know, I think as well, we'll probably share some future similarities as well, because I'm always thinking about like what's next, right? I'm turning 26 this year. You know, I'm not old, but feel it. My back feels it. But got to use my kinesiology degree to something, I think, on that one. But
those vitamins.
Yeah. The landscape is just ever changing as well.
Yeah. So. Well, for sure, everything was turned upside down.
Yep.
And I think having that ability to adapt quickly, and seeing like having foresight to see 2, 3, 5 years ahead, that's really, really beneficial. At least for me, because maybe it's because I just actually don't like change as much as I am willing to change. I think for me, I'd rather change in my own terms than have something force on me.
Gotcha.
So if I can anticipate certain moves and
helps
changes,
you prepare for it, right? Mentally and stuff.
I think that's my mindset towards that. I don't like to be surprised. So for me, I'm always like scenario mapping. I'm like, okay, in this situation, what's the worst case scenario? What's the best case scenario? And then if I can live somewhere in between, then like, okay.
Is that for every situation? Like when you're picking like your favorite sandwich or your
no, not that bad. I'm not one of those guys.
Does not taste good at all.
Yeah.
Best case scenario is the best sandwich I'll ever make.
But I think that's kind of my thought process. Decision making process, right? Again,
I think as a product designer, it makes sense, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, and this was baked into us as an engineer because
as an engineer as well.
Like, I actually learned structural engineering, and so like it literally was life or death.
Does the bridge stay up or does the bridge break?
Yeah, well, I mean, you got different solutions, right? And so you have your multiple levels of like things that you can do. So, but
excellent. Well. We are, as you said, nearing the end of our episode, but it would not be a BV episode without having the final question of what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Oh man, I hate these questions.
Did I not prep you for this?
So deep and cheesy. No, you know what? I should have remembered. I forgot. My younger self.
Yeah, it can be yesterday even.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be like. There's no select time frame of this.
I know a recent a thing that I learned is reach out, like I said, like that story in Twitter, or just reaching out, or even learning. I think it's a balance, because sometimes I want to learn to do things on my own, just so like I don't want to bother people, but man, like you just advance so much further when you just ask for help, and you never know who you're gonna like run into. Yeah. So I would just say start early, ask for help early, or reach out early. Yeah. I think that would have saved me a lot more time, just like banging my head against some certain stuff.
Why isn't this working?
Yeah. But at the same time, I think you do need that a little bit to go through that to appreciate.
That was me for like Webflow.
Like,
I could have probably just messaged you, hey Josh, how do I do this? But I was just like, I want to. There's a little pride in there as well, but a little ego. But it was how do I first understanding the problem, not just how do I fix it? Why is it not working to begin with? And then from there, okay, it's not working because of whatever reason. How can I fix this? Okay, let's try this. Let's try that. You know, but trial and error. Fixed. Okay, now can I replicate that with other things as well? So, and similar experience with the podcast. Similar experience with when I first starting photos and videos. You know, how do I edit this? How do I edit that? What's Premiere Pro? What's Lightroom? I have no idea what the heck those things work. So
and I think I'll add on to this. It's kind of like this mindset of, do you build things in a siloed environment, or do you keep it like open up to open source? Even like Elon Musk, that's kind of his approach on things too, right? Yeah. Well, I don't know, it's pretty controversial now, but he wants to like open up Twitter on open source, like the code, just because. But it makes sense, because if you actually have a pool of people, and each person has their own like piece of the puzzle or of a solution, you would do it a disservice if you just like keep it like, no, I'm just gonna not take your input. I'm just gonna do things myself. At the end of the day, I think it's like I'm all for collaboration, having people share their ideas, and then the best idea will always arise to the top if you allow it to like be open
in the first place.
Yeah. So
interesting.
That's a nice little
segue. Well, thank you, Josh. I really do appreciate it, and thank you for bringing me to your very nice little studio here.
Oh yeah, this is the first time.
Yeah,
so
this
thanks.
is the first time I've seen it. It's a very nice space. Where can people find you? Where can they connect with you if they want to learn more about product design or anything along those lines? This is your shout out.
Yeah. Well, I've
Twitter.
been in Get Twitter.
Some more followers.
At the Josh Loh. Last name is Loh. Same thing at Instagram. I'm actually about to relaunch some of my own initiatives. Should I just announce it here?
Let's do it. A BV exclusive.
I think like it's not built, but hey, I mean, this will force me to do it. It's called the Digital Third.
Okay.
So the digitalthird.com. And I'll try to put it up on LinkedIn and everything. You can find that. And essentially that's going to be like a training ground for like designers. So the whole premise behind that is there's so many like online information and just talks, but not a lot of practical like workshops or applications. So things like Figma or Webflow, I want to do some live streams or like have online spaces. So it's called the Digital Third. Third as in it's a third space. So I got that concept from Starbucks, where your first place is your home, your second place is work, and the third place is kind of the meeting ground. So usually it's a coffee shop or whatever, but I want this to be a digital third space. And also, I know this is a long plug, but
no. This is your time to shine.
The third, this recent thing I kind of learned is that I want to bring in like a third place mentality. So again, like if like a Olympic medalist, it's great to have gold first, and then it's actually worse to be second because like you're just that close, and so they're actually unhappy. But to be third, you're in a space where you're grateful that you just made it. It doesn't mean that you're horrible, like you're third out of the whole competition. And it also forces you just to like continue, like you're not the best, you didn't make it yet, but you want to have this continual motivation to improve to finally get first. So anyways, that's kind of that. I thought that was a little philosophical, but
I like it.
It's a good mindset to improve.
Yeah, I'm very interested in always what you've done is very good work. So I'm very looking forward to see what that looks like. Episode will probably be released by second week of June.
Okay,
so
I'll have something out by then.
We'll see what that is in terms of what's outlined there. But thank you again for coming on the pod. I really do appreciate it. As always, it's always nice chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise.
And having a good conversation. And thank you to all of our listeners. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. Hit that like and subscribe button. We'll be doing a lot more content now on the channel as I continue to revamp the podcast and do more in-person content as well.
Nice.
And I'm just really looking forward to what I think, it's nice and sunny. What almost feels like summer now after the months of rain and stuff like that. So it's nice to start revamping this at a very nice time of the year as well. So thank you again for tuning in. This is again Aaron from Beneath Vancouver Radio, and this was Josh. And catch you on the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.